Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, it's been wide open throttle up to this point, but it's time to put on the brakes, literally. This Garage Ed is all about the calipers. How do they apply the brakes? What kind of calipers do we have? How can we diagnose them? And also talk about some tools that we're going to use. Now, let's start out with calipers and what do they do. Here's a caliper right here. And what happens is the master cylinder develops some hydraulic pressure, sends it down to the caliper, and then the caliper applies the brakes. But what a lot of people don't know, it actually moves to do that. Most calipers do. And what's happening is when the piston applies, it moves over. So the inboard pad contacts the rotor and the outboard pad then comes in and squeezes it. Key is, how does it do it? Well, check this out. True Tech Garage fashion. Here's exactly how it does it. The piston has fluid behind here. It moves out, it pushes, and the cool thing is the only thing that retracts that piston is this tiny little square cut seal. Well, what do you mean? The deformation of that square cut seal. So when it goes out, it deforms the seal, and then when it pulls it back, the rubber actually comes back to shape and pulls it back. Now that's why it's so important to do a visual, to do a good brake job, and lube the caliper slides. How do you do that? Well, of course we're going to show you. This is Tech Garage. Here's our caliper, and this is called a moving caliper. There's two types. There's a floating and there's a sliding. This one is a floating. Why? Well, if I pull this up right here, it floats on these pins. So what do I want to know about these pins? Clean them off, get them in good shape, take you some brake lube, make sure it's brake lube them up real good, make sure you get nothing on the pads, and make sure these pins are allowed to move. Why? Well, the square cut seal pulls it back. When the inboard pad contacts, it moves in and it moves out. If it's not moving in and out, you're going to wear out those pads prematurely, not worth it. Now this one here is a sliding caliper. What's a sliding caliper? Well, instead of floating on pins, it slides on these little guides right here. And when it slides back and forth, once again, it moves. Inboard contacts, outboard pad comes in and makes contact. It's a moving caliper. So once again, brake lube these slides, make sure it's moving, clean them up really, really well. The only thing pulling it back, the little square cut seal. You may have a fixed caliper. Now, a fixed caliper is fixed. It does not move. So in this case, just be careful with the banjo bolts. It goes through here and fluid transfers to both sides. You have pistons on both sides. So this one's pretty cool. A lot of high performance cars, you just apply the brakes, boom, comes out and squeezes it. So this one here, just make sure it's clean, make sure the pistons move, and you're good to go with this one. Now, Rock Auto also has some cool tools. Cool tools like this one right here. I got this off their website, rockauto.com, and this is really neat because you can just put it in between the pistons and wind it out. When you wind it out, you're pushing the piston back, makes it super easy to do a brake job. Also found this one right here. This tool is cool as well. You put it right here, inside of the caliper, put your old pad back on, twist it in, and you move it back. I know everybody grabs the big pliers and wrenches it or a screwdriver and pulls it back. Hey, it works, but today some of these calipers are aluminum, lightweight, some phenolic pistons in there. You probably want to do it right. No problem, inexpensive tools, rockauto.com, you can do it right every time. Now Dave's got a couple of tricks over there for us as well, and he's actually lubing the slides on our Challenger. Let's check in with him.
John, it's critical that your brake caliper moves, otherwise you're going to get premature pad wear. So I'm going to show you something that's just a little ounce of prevention, and you're going to be really glad that you took this measure before things got really ugly on you. Now, the brake caliper is held on here by two bolts. This is a floating caliper, so we have two slides. So we've got the bottom bolt out, taking the top one out already, and this is connected to the brake hose behind the caliper, and you do not want to let this hang from the brake hose. It will pull the connections apart and you'll be in a world of hurt. One thing you can do is you can take a bungee cord, you can string it up from the A-arms and just let it hang there and take the pressure off of the brake hose, but in our case we're actually able to set it up here on top of the disc, so that'll be secure there. Now, again, there are two slides here. I'm going to show you how to do this on one of them, and you just pull the slide back out where the bolt was and take a look at it. Again, we did a brake job on this vehicle last season, so this is in pretty good shape, but you'll probably have rust on here. You'll probably have some debris and everything, so you want to grab a wire wheel or a wire brush, and you can actually just scrub the debris off on there until it looks something like this. When you get to that point, get your brake clean, because that's good for cleaning everything. And we will get some of the gunk off of there. I probably used too much, but that's all right. And now we'll grab some of our brake part lubricant here. Now, there's no real voodoo to this. You just slather it on, and wearing gloves is advisable here because this stuff kind of gets everywhere. It makes cleanup a lot easier when you're done. And we'll just rub it on there and make sure we get it all even. And do the same thing on the bottom one. And it is as simple as that. Now, to put these back on, you just reverse the procedure. So you put the slides in first, put the caliper back on, put your bolts on. Don't forget your torque specs. You want to check the manufacturer's specifications to make sure you have those on exactly right. Otherwise, you're going to run into big problems down the road. Well, don't go anywhere because the next segment is going to be electrifying. When we come back, it's all about batteries. Keep it right here on Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com.